No, a different.
Different one. She's at HPD now, I think. Yeah, I think they're
Oh,
related.
Yeah,
Oh.
isn't that funny?
Is,
One's the eighth and one's the
is there a moment where there will be no more air rights? Okay.
Yeah.
But like,
Technically.
not.
There's still a lot out there. How many of them would?
Okay, good afternoon and welcome. This is the annual meeting of the Theater Subdistrict Council. Welcome to also the meeting of the Governance and Audit Committees, and welcome to the hearing room of the New York City Planning Commission. The Theater Subdistrict Council was founded in 2000, soon after the modifications to the zoning resolution in 1998. It created the Theater Subdistrict Council. Express goals of the TSC, as stated in the resolution, are enhancing the long-term viability of Broadway by facilitating the production of plays and small musicals within the theater district and developing new audiences for all types of theatrical productions. So we have our Director of Finance, Jackie Jacobs, to speak about budget and finance. She's remote. We also have the TSC Grant Administrator, Barbara Janowitz, speak about grant making, if there's anything to talk about that. Also be corporate housekeeping, such as elections, proposal to modify the investment guidelines, and time for a general discussion of the TSC. So the materials that you should have are a package, meetings of the members and directors, and then under that, I have extra paper copies if anybody needs them. Under that is the annual report. And also, you should have received one sheet, which is the proposed modifications to the investment guidelines. I want to make sure everybody has that. Okay.
Got the red markup?
Yes. Okay. I don't know if anybody has any introductory comments to make at this point. If not, I'll get right to the, Okay. So the first thing, if on page 4 of the document that's meetings of the members and directors, on page 4 it's called an acknowledgement of fiduciary duties and the conflict of interest form is on page 4. If you could please fill that out before you leave today, if you're able. And then on page 9 of that same package is the acknowledgement of fiduciary duties and responsibilities. And if you're unable to fill this out, you could email it to me or Barbara at a later time. Also, and I think this is on page 8 in the package, I just want to talk about section 28242 of the Public Authorities Law. It requires board members to have a corporate training. That training is an hour and a half, and it's offered remotely, periodically, by the New York State Authorities Budget Office. The upcoming sessions are on December 3rd or December 10th, but they have them quite frequently. According to the authority, best practice is to do it every 3 years if you serve on a public board in New York. Anyway, just want to put that out there, that the agency, again, is New York State Authorities Budget Office, and if you're looking for the training for board members, you can find links to that. Okay. So if anybody, unless anybody objects, I'm going to call a meeting of the members to order. Anybody want to?
No objection.
Objection? Okay. Meeting of the members. So first question is there a quorum? We do have a quorum. We have our 2 appointed members, Mr. Moreno, Ms. Bailey. We also have representatives of the Speaker and the Borough President, and also Dan Grodnick, Director of the Driver City Planning. That's 5 out of 8, so we do have a quorum. Okay, so as our quorum is present, I'd like to note 2 things. One is we had a resignation, and that is of Member Director Paige Price. Her resignation letter is found in your package on page 16. On page 15, you can see the appointment letter from Speaker Adams naming Ms. Bailey as a new member of the Theater Subdistrict Council, and welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
As required by the bylaws, the members must select themselves directors to conduct business. So can we have a show of hands so you as members can elect yourself directors? Everybody's okay with that? Yeah. Electing yourself? Okay, great. Okay, with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting of members and now start the meeting of directors. Is there a quorum of directors? Yes, there is. I'd like to now move to page 10 to 14 in the package, which is the 2024 minutes. And if there are any questions about the minutes, any corrections, if there isn't, then if there just could be a motion to approve and adopt them.
Move to approve the minutes.
Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, the minutes have been adopted. And now we're going to speak about the budget for the year 2026 and 2027. I'd like to hand it over to Jacqueline Jacobs, the Director of Fiscal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Jacobs, DCP's Director of Fiscal, and I'll be speaking about the TSC's financials and the proposed FY27 budget. Before turning to the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year 27, I would like to highlight that in March of 2025, a contribution of $1.39 million was made into the Theater Subdistrict Fund, increasing the TSC's net assets to over $1.5 million. The fund, as it stands today, is expected to slowly appreciate by a net of roughly $3,000 per year based on current bank interest rates. Right now, the TSC's savings and checking accounts are earning interest rates of 1.1% and 3.17% respectively. If you turn to the budget documents on page 19 of your briefing materials, we're proposing an FY27 operating budget of $38.5 thousand. This consists of $22.3 thousand in in-kind services and $16.2 thousand in routine administrative expenses, such as annual audit and tax filing fees. Audit services continue to be one of the TSC's largest operating expenses. Being that the auditor's contract expired this year, we are looking to resolicit for services at a lower rate by issuing a fixed price procurement, which we hopefully will lower those expenses. Fiscal year 27 operating expenses are projected to be entirely offset by $41.5 thousand in revenues, $22.3 coming from in-kind services, and $19.3 coming from projected interest revenue, resulting in a slight increase in the net assets at the end of fiscal year 27. Before a motion is made to adopt the proposed fiscal year 27 budget, does anyone have any questions?
May I, Dominic? Thanks, Jackie. You said that there was a deposit of $1.39 million. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And that brought it up to this total of $1.577 million. Is that right?
Yeah, over 1.5 million.
Over 1.5. Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Okay. And then we expect roughly $33,000 of income based on existing investment strategy. Is that right?
It's solely from bank interests.
That's bank. So, okay. Well, we're going to talk about our opportunities for permitted investments, but right now it's just bank interest that we're looking at. Okay. Well, before, I guess, the infusion of $1.39 million, it was not a significant sum, but now it's a little bit more significant. So, all right, we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay. Thanks, Jackie.
So I'd just like to say, is there a motion to adopt the budget?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Public Authorities Accountability Act requires that the board approve an annual report. And now this report is a separate document in your package, sent you at the same time as the package we've been flipping through. It's this document here. It says annual report. And are there any questions or comments on the annual report? And if there aren't, see if there's a motion to adopt the annual report.
I move to adopt the annual.
Second? Okay. So the annual report has been adopted. Okay. I'd like to turn it over to Barbara. I know you don't have too much to say, but
Very little.
okay. And Barbara's our grant administrator.
Very little to say. There's been obviously no new grant making. The last grants that we made, period ended June of 2019. But it is really heartening to know that a number of the programs that we've funded since 2008 are still in existence. And there were more than 250 folks who were trained in the last two rounds of grants. So we have people in union box offices, we have people backstage, we have administrators, we have development people who came through this, and now they're in the pipeline. So that is sort of a permanent impact that we've done. 'All I have. Oh, I will talk about myself, and this is my last meeting. It has been a wonderful 17 years, but 17 years is a long time, and I didn't have gray hair when I started. So it will be turned over to the next consultant, and I'll be around to help with the transition. I'm not going anywhere. The time has come. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, for everything that you've done. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is officer elections. So historically, the director of city planning is the elected treasurer. The commissioner of cultural affairs is the CEO. Borough president is secretary, and the speaker is vice chair. It doesn't have to be this way, but this way it's always been. If that would be okay, we can continue with those officer positions. Anybody to motion to, yes?
Move to approve that designation.
Okay, and second, anyone? Okay. And then one more thing with regards to officers is the other officers who are not directors. Myself as chief contracting officer and David Parrish as chief financial officer. If you're okay with those positions, motion to approve and a second. Okay, thank you. So the officers have been elected to their positions. So now I'm going to, excuse me, if it'd be okay if I adjourn the meeting of, for the meeting of the directors for a meeting of the audit committee. Okay, now audit committee will come to order, and now I'm going to turn again to Ms. Jacobs to present the audited financial statements, which I think are on page 21 of your package.
Yes, so the complete audit report is on page 21 of the package, and I am happy to report that we received a clean audit and assessment of internal controls for the year ending May 31st of 2025. There were no material weaknesses, deficiencies, or compliance issues identified.
In what must be the least complicated body of work that they have seen, that's good news.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt, I'm sorry, Jackie, that's all you have on that, right? Or
Yes.
okay. Is there a motion to adopt the audited financial statements? And second? Thank you. Okay. You turn to page 38 of your package. The Public Authorities Law requires that the TSC conduct an annual assessment of its internal control structures and procedures. And this has been prepared in coordination with our Chief Financial Officer, David Parrish. The internal audit assesses the major business functions of the organization, namely managing the theater subdistrict fund, procuring professional services, and grant making. Must consider associated risks, if necessary, recommend corrective action. So turning 2 pages earlier to the auditor's statement, when commenting on the assessment of internal controls, the auditor wrote, "Our consideration of internal control was for the limited purpose described in the first paragraph of this section and was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal control that might be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Given these limitations, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we considered to be material weaknesses." So is there a motion to adopt the assessment of internal controls for fiscal year 2024-25? Okay, and second? Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the audit committee and move on to the governance committee. Yes, motion
to adjourn.
Okay. So now we'll start the meeting of the governance committee. There's one item on the agenda, and that is a brief discussion of board member evaluations, which you would find on page 49. The Public Authorities Accountability Act requires a board member to conduct an annual evaluation of the organization. The form, again, is the last page of your package, and the survey needs to be anonymous. So all I ask is that you fill it out if you can here before you go, and just leave the forms here and I'll collect them. The summary of the results will be submitted to the New York State Authorities Budget Office. Any questions about that form? Yes?
If this is my first meeting, do I fill this out? Because I don't really know. I can, but
Would
would it be better if I did?
I think so, because Well, because you were appointed in March, I know
Got
we've
it.
had no meetings, but you have been a
Great.
member. Okay. Okay, so that is the only business for the governance committee, so is there a motion to adjourn the governance committee? Okay, and second? Thank you, okay. So now, I'm going to return to the meeting, of directors. The Public Authorities Law requires that the TSC annually review and readopt its procurement policy, which is on page 42, and the investment guidelines on page 48 of the package. So we're gonna talk about the investment guidelines proposed modification, but before we get to that, I just want to make sure, are there any questions about the procurement policy? And if not, can we move to approve the procurement policy? That's the one on page 42.
Yes, yes, I move to approve it.
Okay, second?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, let's talk about the investment guidelines. And, you should have received in your package a one-sheet, well, this is the investment guidelines, and the red ink indicates proposed modifications. We were looking at the investment guidelines, and we noticed that the only thing that the Subdistrict Council should be investing in is federal discount notes, treasury bills, treasury notes, or other guaranteed federal government securities. Now, you know, we obviously have to bank, so deposits should be able to be held in a bank. And according to the law, the New York State law for public corporations, it's okay to hold money in banks as long as they're federally insured. So the proposal is to expand what the theater subdistrict funds can be held in to federally insured CDs or time deposits held by banks or trust companies located and authorized to do business in New York State. And that language about located and authorized comes directly from the Public Authorities Law. Also, federally insured savings or checking accounts held by banks, New York State banks. And lastly, money market funds whose underlying investments are wholly composed of instruments listed here on this sheet. If there's any questions about that, I think that, and Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the funds are being held in the New York State Bank anyway. So this is just making sure partially that the investment guidelines fit the reality of how things are being run.
That is correct. They're being held in a New York State checking and savings account.
Any other questions about this?
You're saying that the guidelines are being expanded to reflect.
Well, first of all, I don't think that we have any of the money in mutual funds, well, money market funds, you know, but given how safe they are and how they are only invested in federally insured banknotes, that we think it's okay to expand it to that. Jackie, I mean, I think, is it in a savings account and a checking account, or I know it's not in CDs or other bank time deposits, but I think it's at least in, you know, those type of savings or checking accounts, right?
Yes, and right now, based on the interest rates that our accounts are earning, it's more advantageous for us to keep the funds in checking, since it has an interest rate of 3.17% versus 1.1%. In our savings. So we have the ability to earn more interest if we were to keep the TSC's current funding in checking versus savings.
Okay. All right. And these guidelines will allow that flexibility. Any other questions?
Well, it sounds like it does a little more than that too, though. It allows for additional options,
yes,
if I understand it correctly, that are not being employed now, but could be employed. Is that right?
You're right. The time deposits or CDs, however you want to.
Right. So, which seems fine. And your understanding is this is consistent with state law for public authorities, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Great. That looks good to me. I do have a question, though, about how and when we might want to employ those additional methods. I don't know if that's next on the agenda or if we should discuss it now.
You mean in terms of,
well, now we have a few other options. We've got CDs,
yeah,
we've got money market funds. Jackie's talking to us about checking account, but we now have a few other options. The question is, will we now, I would encourage us to, I suppose I'm the treasurer of this operation, so I would strongly encourage us to, which is really a big difference right there, to actually look at what else we'd be able to do here, and now that we have more money in this account.
About a month ago, Jackie and I met with representatives of, Jackie, was it Chase? Or which bank do we meet with?
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan Chase, about options. And we haven't, made a recommendation, something to recommend yet, but we are researching it as to what is the best return, but also under these guidelines, of course. I mean,
do you need authorization from this board to take advantage of whatever ends up being the best opportunity subject to these rules, or can you just go ahead and do it? I mean, I would recommend that we allow you to do that.
Yeah, I think we can just do it.
Subject to these rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if the board just wants to, vote on that just to make sure, but I don't think we need authority to where to invest the money as long as it's according to the guidelines.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Everybody's okay with that? Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, so then I'll, just to double check, approve the revisions to the design, to the investment guidelines.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is all of the corporate housekeeping that we have to do for this meeting. Next, if anyone in the board wants to discuss, now, obviously a very big event last year, an infusion of cash, and we can talk about how we approach this. I'll offer if anybody has any ideas, recommendations, or feel free.
I know we can't read do we think there is going to be any more in the near term? Are we aware of any other pending air sales?
I'm not aware of any other applications that would result in an infusion, but I mean, you just don't know. Things
Right.
can happen very quickly.
Yeah. So we should kind of assume this may be it for.
It's a little unpredictable. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of things have changed in land use law, and certainly even in the vicinity of the theater subdistrict. But we don't have any current applications. Right. So there is that.
How much money bank for one of our other grants in that?
Done anything from...
Just to say it again?
Yeah, if you want.
How much money did we have as total for one of the other granting rounds?
We've done as little as 1.2. Actually, we did 1 million one year. Remember, we did two $500,000 grants. That was unusual. But as small as 1.2, as much as 2.2. Obviously, the more money, the greater number of grants we can give and the larger size, because we've always given reasonably sized grants, just for greater impact.
I think one point that might be interesting for our next get-together would be to answer your question in more detail as to what might be the possible opportunities out there, or what we are potentially hearing from applicants, even if we don't have a formal filed application, which would be the basis for us to anticipate anything officially. And then that might help guide our next level of decision-making as to whether we want to put it all out on the door, or build some sort of a corpus and, live off of, income and make grants as they go. I mean, I know that was a conversation that we've had in the past. But we can come to the next meeting with a little bit more information about that.
Yeah,
it would be useful.
It seems to me that if there's no more, not a reason to think there's more coming in, there's huge need out there.
Yeah.
And the question is whether or not you could do something impactful with this amount of money in the current environment. On the other hand, if we heard that it was possible there'd be more sometime in the next year or so, then maybe you say, let's wait till there's a slightly larger corpus, but start thinking about how you'd want to give it away.
Yeah, I think we should come back with a little bit more detail for you on that from the land use perspective, so that we can actually know what to expect.
In early years, in early, rounds of this, we would make a $1.1 million, total gift, knowing that there was
There was
stuff
more
coming down
coming.
the pike.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't the end. Right. This way you could do an impactful grant for 10 or 15 groups, but that's all.
Right.
That has been my concern, as you know, over the past 4 years, which is, finding a way to have this not just end. So those are all connected questions, I think, so.
Maybe for the next, now, we don't necessarily have to have the next meeting in November or December again, but I think that the important thing is making sure we can find a new administrator, and I think that that's going to really help us, someone who understands how this would work. And then, I mean, who knows, maybe next year there might be another application. We can't count on that, obviously, but I think the next thing is working with Department of Cultural Affairs to get a new administrator. And Barbara has offered to help with that, which is much appreciated. So I think that will be, the officers here at City Planning, what we'll be working on to get a new administrator, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Anything else? Okay. Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. It's been a long time. It's been fantastic. I have to say, it has really been, a great pleasure and a privilege.
It's not 'cause I'm on now.
No,
Yeah, we know each other,
It's a conflict of interest.
we know each other 30 years, so,
45.